I was 42 years old the morning a man leaned across the marble counter of TBI Bank and jabbed his finger at my face like I was a trespasser. His words cracked through the lobby louder than the ticking clock on the wall. You have 5 minutes before we call the police. 5 minutes to prove you belong here. 5 minutes. That was all he thought I deserved. The bank smelled of polished stone and cold air conditioning, the kind that usually makes people feel safe. But right then, the only thing it carried was the weight of suspicion pressing against my skin. A guard shifted beside me, hand resting just close enough to his holster to make the message clear. Around us, customers lowered their voices, some pretending not to watch, others staring openly, waiting to see me fail. I stood still, black suit, leather case tucked under my arm, initials AW pressed into the flap. Nothing flashy, nothing screaming wealth. That was intentional. And still, he looked at me as though I had stolen the right to stand in this space. 5 minutes, he repeated, smirking as though the countdown itself could erase me. I smiled, slow, deliberate. 5? I asked. More than enough. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to me. The manager's hand slammed against the counter, the sound bouncing off the high ceilings. His voice rose, rehearsed, sharp. People like you walk in every week with fake documents, fake accounts, fake names. This is a private client branch, not a charity. His words didn't sting because they were new. They stung because they were old echoes of every room I'd ever walked into where my skin was treated like a forged signature. At 22, when I tried to deposit my first commission check, they froze my account for unusual activity. At 26, when I offered collateral worth more than their loan, they still marked me high risk. And now, 2 decades later, with a portfolio that dwarfed this branch, I was still being told I didn't belong. The guard leaned closer, as if rehearsing the moment he'd be told to remove me. His badge caught the overhead light, bright, metallic, but hollow, the kind of shine that hides fear. Behind him, a junior teller in her 20s clutched a stack of forms but stopped mid-step, eyes fixed on me, then on the man barking orders. She didn't say a word. Not yet, but I saw the tension in her jaw. Someone else in the lobby lifted a phone, the red light of the camera blinking alive. I held my ground, silent, anchored. The marble beneath my palms felt colder with every passing second, but my voice, when it finally came, was steady. You asked me for 5 minutes. Watch carefully, because in less than that, you'll wish you'd given me 5 seconds instead. The room shifted. A few whispers rose. The manager laughed loud, dismissive, brittle. 5 seconds? You won't last one. But I had already begun counting down, not to his clock, but to mine. The seconds ticked, but not on his clock, on mine. He leaned closer, lips curled as if the marble desk between us made him king. You're wasting everyone's time, he spat. We know you're kind. Flash a card, act important, hope no one checks. But I'm checking. And guess what? You're not verified. His voice carried across the lobby like a public trial. A mother with her son shifted uncomfortably in the corner. A man in a tailored suit stopped mid-sip of his espresso. Every ear in the room heard the word, "You're kind." I stayed still. I'd heard that phrase before. At 16, in a Charlotte hotel lobby, when a clerk told me the chairs were for guests only. At 29, in Los Angeles, when a banker decided I didn't look like someone with 7 figures to deposit. The words change. The intent never does. The guard beside me adjusted his stance, feet spread wider. His eyes said he was ready to drag me out. My silence unnerved him. He expected fear. He expected begging. He got neither. Behind him, the young teller who'd frozen with her stack of forms finally whispered, almost to herself but loud enough, "Her name's in the system. I saw it this morning." The manager snapped his head toward her, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Stay out of this or you're out of a job." Her lips pressed shut, but the flush in her face betrayed her. She knew the truth. And now so did a handful of customers leaning closer, curiosity turning into suspicion not toward me, but toward him. He slammed the desk again. "Security!" he barked. The guard's hand brushed the radio on his shoulder, ready to call backup. A man in line, 30s, hoodie, phone already raised, called out, "Why don't you just run her ID?" Gasps rippled, not because of his words, but because he'd broken the unspoken rule. Customers weren't supposed to interfere. The manager's eyes narrowed. Mind your business. The man didn't lower his phone. This is my business. That's my bank, too. The air thickened. Every second my silence stretched was another second their control cracked. The manager leaned back, false confidence dripping from every syllable. You see? This is what happens when imposters walk in. They cause chaos. They embarrass the institution. You don't belong here, and everyone knows it. I finally lifted my chin, eyes locked on his. No, what everyone knows, I said, voice calm but sharp as steel, is that you just called a black woman a fraud in a bank you barely manage. The room stilled. Phones rose higher. Whispers grew louder. The countdown had begun, and not the one he thought he controlled. The moment I finished speaking, the lobby split in two, half pretending not to hear, half leaning forward like witnesses in a courtroom. And maybe that's what this marble floor had become, a stage where dignity was on trial. The manager sneered, his confidence cracked but not broken. He wanted the last word. He wanted control. You think that tone intimidates me? He barked. Let me show you how this works. He reached across the counter, snatched my bank card from the tray, and held it high like contraband. The plastic glinted under the chandelier, but in his grip it looked like evidence in a crime he was desperate to invent. This card is ours now until verification clears, he announced to the room. Gasps, murmurs. A woman near the door whispered, That's theft. The guard shifted closer, looming at my side, his shadow cutting over me like a threat. You should step outside, ma'am. Cooperate, and this ends quietly. Quiet. That word again, as if silence could erase humiliation. I remembered another time, years back, when a realtor laughed at me mid-contract signing, called me overreaching. He tried to slide the paperwork off the table, just like this man had just snatched my card. Back then, I didn't push back. Today, I wasn't that woman anymore. I steadied my breath, eyes fixed on the manager. You just stole property in front of your clients. He smirked wider, twisting the card between his fingers. No, I prevented fraud. My clients should thank me. The arrogance in his voice spread through the room like smoke, choking every ounce of reason left. Phones tilted higher. A man near the espresso bar muttered, He really just said that? The young teller, face pale, knuckles white around her stack of forms, took one small step forward. Her voice trembled, but she spoke. Her account, it's real. I checked it this morning. The manager snapped at her again, venom sharp. One more word and you're done here. But it was too late. People heard. People believed her more than they believed him. The guard's radio crackled as he raised it to his mouth. Dispatch, we have a... I cut in, voice calm, low but clear. Think carefully before you finish that sentence, because when you do, it won't be me explaining it to the board. It'll be you. The guard froze, radio still in hand. His eyes darted from me to the manager, searching for permission. The manager's face flushed red, his volume rising to fill the space. Escort her out, now. She's a fraud. She doesn't belong in this bank, and she never will. Every word struck like a gavel, harsh and final. But in the silence that followed, the only thing louder was the sound of his credibility collapsing. And me? I didn't move an inch, because 5 minutes hadn't passed yet, and my clock was still ticking. I didn't reach for him. I didn't fight for the card he'd stolen. Instead, I slid my hand into the leather case under my arm and pulled out my phone. The room held its breath. One tap, a single name on speed dial. Carla, I said when the line clicked open, my voice steady enough to cut through the noise. Start protocol. Her reply was immediate, crisp. Understood. Which phase? Phase 1. Full logging. Real time. Confirmed, she answered. Every word, every timestamp, every action in this branch is now captured and mirrored to the compliance board. The guard froze mid-step. The manager's grin faltered, but he recovered quickly, scoffing. What are you doing? Calling your cousin? This is a bank, not your playground. But his voice wasn't as sharp anymore. It wavered, just enough for people to notice. Around us, the lobby stirred. A man whispered, Compliance board? Another lifted his phone higher, as if sensing the story shifting. The manager slammed my card down on the counter as if noise could drown truth. She's bluffing. She doesn't have that kind of access. Carla's voice came back through my speaker, clear and deliberate. Audit file initiated. Branch 214. Incident tagged under racial profiling and client misconduct. Manager on duty, Richard Hale. The name landed like a verdict. His head jerked toward me. How do you... He stopped himself, but his face said the rest. I leaned slightly forward, my voice low, but everyone heard. You gave me 5 minutes. It took less than 2 to put your career on record. The guard's radio crackled again, but this time he lowered it, uncertain. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at Hale, the man whose name had just been spoken like an accusation. The young teller stepped closer, courage trembling but present. She's not lying, she said. Her name is in the system. She's not... Hale cut her off, louder than before, desperate now. Quiet! Both of you! But desperation doesn't silence truth. It amplifies it. And the more he barked, the more the room tilted against him. I held my phone calmly, no need to shout. Phase 2, I said to Carla. Her voice returned, colder this time. Compliance escalation activated. Executive oversight notified. Live stream to board channel engaged. Phones around the lobby rose higher. Customers exchanged glances, whispers growing into a low hum. The stage had shifted. It wasn't me on trial anymore. It was him. Richard Hale's face drained of color. He tried for bravado, but his words came out thin. You don't scare me. I smiled, slow and deliberate. Good, because fear isn't what's coming for you. Truth Island. And in that moment, the countdown wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to him. The hum inside the lobby swelled into something heavier, like storm clouds pressing against glass. Every phone lifted higher. Every whisper sharpened into judgment. And still, I hadn't raised my voice once. Richard Hale tried again, desperate. This is all a performance. She doesn't have clearance. She doesn't even have proof she's a real client. But his words no longer landed like truth. They landed like excuses. I placed my phone gently on the counter, speaker still live. Carla's voice carried through the marble hall, calm and absolute. Verification complete. Account: Anderson Wealth Holdings. Owner: Alexandra Williams. Status: primary shareholder and executive director. Confirmation logged. Gasps shot through the room like sparks across dry wood. The young teller's eyes went wide, her lips parting as if she'd been holding her breath for minutes. A man in line muttered, "Wait, shareholder." Another whispered, "She owns the place." Hale stumbled back a half step, his hand still clutching my card but with no weight left in it. His arrogance had drained out with the color of his face. I looked at him, calm, steady, and finally spoke the sentence I'd been holding. You called me a fraud in a bank I own. The silence after was louder than any shout. Even the guard lowered his gaze, shifting uneasily as if the marble beneath his shoes had turned untrustworthy. A woman near the door clapped once, just once. Then another joined her. Within seconds, the sound spread slow, deliberate applause, echoing through the high ceilings. Not polite, not casual. It was judgment. Hale's jaw tightened. You set us up." I shook my head. "No, I tested you, and you failed." His breath came ragged now, his voice cracking as he tried to hold on. This doesn't change anything. You don't belong here dressed like that, walking in without an entourage, no notice." I cut him off, my tone sharp but quiet. "You think fabric defines belonging? You think silence means submission? That's your last mistake." The teller finally stepped out from behind her desk, her voice clear now. "She's telling the truth. I saw her name in the system. She does belong here, more than any of us." The guard shifted again, but this time not closer to me, closer to Hale, as though instinct told him which side his job might survive on. Hale's composure cracked completely. He raised my card high again, but his hand shook. "None of you understand," but the room already had. Clients with phones angled toward him, employees staring at their shoes, applause still pulsing like a verdict. I reached across the counter, not snatching, not rushing, simply taking back what was mine. My card slid from his trembling hand into mine. I placed it neatly into my case, and then I leaned forward, my words clear enough for every ear. "The only fraud here," I said, "is believing power is yours to give. It isn't. It never was." The applause swelled louder. Hale's face drained further, and in that moment, the bank wasn't his stage anymore. It was mine. The applause didn't fade. It grew like a tide, steady and unstoppable. Phones hovered in the air like spotlights, catching every flicker of Hale's unraveling face. A middle-aged man in a navy suit, client badge dangling from his pocket, stepped forward. His voice carried over the clapping. "I've banked here 20 years. I've never seen a manager humiliate someone like this. I'm moving every dollar out by tomorrow." Gasps, murmurs, the kind that cuts deeper than any insult, because it's tied to money. Hale flinched as though each word stripped away his authority. The young teller stepped further into the open, no longer trembling. She pointed directly at Hale. This isn't the first time. I've logged 3 complaints in the last quarter, all women of color, all dismissed. A ripple spread through the lobby. Heads turned. People whispered louder. A woman clutching her purse muttered, "So, it's a pattern." Hale's voice cracked, desperate. "Don't listen to her. She's junior staff. She doesn't know protocol." But the teller stood straighter, her tone firmer now. "I know integrity, and you lost it a long time ago." The guard, who had shadowed me minutes before, shifted his stance again. This time, he angled his body between me and Hale, as if to say he'd protect me, not eject me. The reversal wasn't subtle. Everyone noticed. A customer near the espresso bar raised his phone higher. "The internet's watching," he said. "This is already live." Hale's eyes darted wildly across the room, searching for control that no longer existed. His fingers trembled against the counter. The arrogance was gone. Only panic remained. I didn't move closer. I didn't need to. The room itself was moving for me. "Every word you've spoken," I said softly, "is now evidence. Every action you took, snatching my card, calling me a fraud, is recorded. You didn't just attack a client. You attacked your owner." The applause returned, louder now, merging with the buzz of whispers and the faint hum of dozens of phones uploading at once. Hale's face twisted, caught between rage and fear. This isn't over." I tilted my head. "You're right. It isn't. But it's over for you." The young teller's voice cut in one last time, clear and sharp as a gavel. "I stand with her." And then, one by one, other voices joined. A woman near the door, a man with a toddler on his hip, even a junior banker behind the glass wall, each one echoing the same 3 words. "I stand with her." The weight of those voices crashed down heavier than any policy Hale had ever hidden behind. And for the first time since he barked his first insult, Richard Hale had nothing left to say. The chant "I stand with her" didn't fade. It layered, one voice on top of another, until it shook the air more than the manager's shouts ever had. Phones tilted higher, capturing a moment that no press release could ever erase. Richard Hale's hands trembled on the counter. He tried to raise his voice, but it cracked, thin and hollow. "Enough! All of you sit down! Put your phones away! This is bank property!" But nobody listened. The guard didn't move. The teller didn't retreat. The clients didn't lower their cameras. Authority had already changed hands, and everyone knew it. I tapped my phone again, calm as ever. "Carla, Phase 3. Her voice returned, sharp as steel. "Confirmed. Executive suspension protocol triggered. Manager Richard Hale. Employee ID 4769. Locked out of system. Badge access revoked. Branch privileges frozen." Almost instantly, the security badge clipped to his belt buzzed and glowed red. Hale looked down, blinking in disbelief. He swiped it against the panel behind the desk, denied. The sound echoed like a verdict. The teller gasped softly, then smiled, relief breaking across her face. Clients murmured louder. A woman near the window whispered, "She just shut him down." Hale stumbled back, his face pale, voice strangled. You can't do this." I met his eyes. I already did. He tried to speak again, but Carla's voice cut through from my speaker, final and unyielding. "Notice of termination will be delivered by corporate within the hour. Effective immediately, Richard Hale is relieved of all duties." The guard exhaled, shoulders loosening. He stepped back not toward me, but toward Hale, as if guarding the room from him now. One client clapped, then another. Within seconds, the applause roared back, heavier than before, not polite but thunderous, sealing Hale's fate. His mouth opened, but no words came. His badge blinked red again, a silent reminder of his fall. I leaned forward, my tone calm but cutting. "You wanted to show this lobby who didn't belong. Congratulations, you just showed them it was you." The applause rose even higher, rolling through the marble chamber like a wave. Hale stood frozen, stripped not by my hand, but by his own arrogance, and by the truth he thought he could bury. And me? I didn't need to shout. Justice had already spoken. The lobby no longer felt like a bank. It felt like a courtroom, and the verdict had already been delivered. Phones hovered high, their tiny red lights blinking like stars against the marble ceiling. Every angle was covered, every second immortalized. A man in a gray hoodie called out from the back, voice steady and clear. "This is live on Twitter right now. Thousands are watching." The words rippled through the room. Hale's face contorted, panic breaking through his thinning mask. He jabbed a finger toward the crowd. "You can't film in here. This is private property. Turn those off or you'll be sued." But the threat landed flat. No one lowered their phones. If anything, more rose. A mother held her camera steady with one hand while balancing her toddler with the other. An older man leaned against his cane, recording without blinking. Even the teller, once trembling, now stood firm, her phone angled at her own manager. Hale's voice cracked into desperation. "Listen to me. None of this counts. I run this branch, not her. You hear me? Not her. I didn't move. I didn't need to." The room itself answered. "She owns this place," someone shouted. "Not anymore, you don't," another added. A ripple of laughter cut through the tension, bitter and sharp. Hale spun toward the guard. "Do something! Arrest her! Throw them out!" But the guard shook his head slowly, his hand resting not on his holster but on his belt buckle. His eyes locked on Hale, calm, unflinching. "You're not in charge anymore." The words shattered whatever illusion Hale was clinging to. He lunged for the counter, grabbing a stack of forms as if paper could shield him from the truth. Pages slipped from his hands, scattering across the polished floor. He bent to grab them, but the sound of laughter grew louder, rolling over him. The teller stepped forward, voice steady now. "Richard Hale, I'm reporting you to HR myself. Today. Right now." Hale's hands shook as he tried to gather the papers, his voice barely a whisper but audible in the stunned silence. "Please, I didn't mean..." But no one listened. Not anymore. I lifted my phone one last time, not to escalate, but to close. "Carla, end phase 3. Mark this incident for legal audit." "Logged," she replied. The weight in the room shifted. It wasn't tense anymore, it was free. Clients nodded to each other, whispering about moving accounts, about justice, about dignity. Phones clicked shut, but only after the moment was saved 1,000 times over. Richard Hale stood alone in the debris of his arrogance, papers scattered, badge dead, career finished, while the bank, my bank, pulsed with a new truth. Power doesn't shout. It stands still and lets the world see. And they had all seen. The lobby had turned. It no longer revolved around Richard Hale. He was just a shadow now, standing amid scattered papers, blinking against the harsh reality closing in. Customers whispered openly, no longer afraid of his title. "I'm closing my accounts this week," said the man in the navy suit. "Same here," a woman added. "If this is how management treats people, I'm gone." Each word cut deeper than any reprimand. Banks survive on trust. And in that room, trust had abandoned him. The teller didn't retreat to her desk. She stood firm at my side, shoulders squared. "I'm filing a report before I leave today. With corporate. With the board. This won't be buried." Her courage sparked others. Another employee, older, gray at the temples, stepped out from behind the glass partition. His voice was quiet, but steady. "I've seen enough. If she owns this place, then this branch doesn't belong to him anymore." Phones rose again, catching Hale's face as the words landed. His jaw trembled. He reached for the counter, searching for balance, but found none. He tried one last time, voice hoarse. "You're all making a mistake. She's manipulating you. You don't even know who she really is." But a woman near the door cut him off, her voice sharp. "We do." And she didn't have to scream to prove it. The crowd murmured in agreement. Someone clapped, then another. And just like before, the applause spread this time not for revelation, but for justice already unfolding. I let the sound roll for a moment before I spoke. My words were quiet, but they carried. "You wanted 5 minutes to prove I belonged. Instead, you proved something else, that this branch doesn't belong to you." Hale shook his head, muttering under his breath. He looked at the guard for rescue, but the man stood still, arms crossed, eyes cold. No ally remained. Even the air felt different now, lighter, charged not with fear, but with inevitability. Hale was cornered, not by walls or guards, but by truth, by witnesses, by his own arrogance. I turned slightly toward the clients, toward the staff who had stepped forward. "What you've seen today isn't just one man's failure. It's the symptom of something bigger, and it ends here." The applause built again, but this time it wasn't chaotic. It was deliberate, a rhythm that sealed the moment. Hale pressed his palms flat on the counter, desperate, broken. "Please, don't do this. I can fix it." But no one answered. Not me, not the staff, not the clients. Silence itself had turned against him. The silence in that marble hall was heavy, the kind that doesn't ask for permission, it demands it. Every eye stayed fixed on me, waiting to see if justice would land or if this moment would dissolve into another excuse. I tapped my phone once more. Carla, Phase 4. Her voice came through, steady, clinical. Confirmed. Branch 214 status frozen. All operations temporarily suspended pending executive review. A chime rang out from the terminals behind the counter. Screens flickered, transactions halted mid-process, printers fell silent. The hum of the bank, its pulse flatlined in seconds. Clients gasped. One man checking his balance at a kiosk shouted, "It just logged me out." Another turned his phone toward the crowd. "She shut the whole branch down." Hale staggered back, eyes darting wildly as if searching for a lever, a switch, some lifeline to pull. You can't do this! These people have accounts! You're hurting your own clients!" But the clients weren't looking at me with anger. They were staring at him, because they knew who had forced this moment into existence. I took a step forward, voice calm, each word sharpened by the hush of the room. "The suspension isn't punishment for them. It's protection from you." Carla's voice chimed again, louder now on speaker. "Notification sent to corporate oversight, compliance division, and federal regulators. Full review underway. Estimated resolution, 72 hours. The teller beside me let out a shaky breath, relief mingled with awe. The older employee nodded slowly, as though he'd been waiting years to see someone like Hale held accountable. Hale's badge buzzed red again, an angry pulse against his hip. He slapped it against the panel once more, denied. Again denied. His movements turned frantic, almost childlike. Each rejection drew laughter from the crowd. Bitter, sharp laughter that cut him down more than my words ever could. He slammed his fists onto the counter, voice ragged. "You're destroying everything!" I met his eyes. "No, I'm restoring it." The applause erupted again, louder than before. Not tentative, not uncertain. This was verdict applause final, unshakable. Hale sank into the chair behind the counter, his hands limp at his sides. Stripped, exposed, not by force, but by truth. I closed my phone, sliding it back into the leather case with the same calm I'd carried since the moment he first spat fraud at me. Then I spoke one last line, every syllable deliberate, every syllable earned. "You thought this bank was your kingdom, but you forgot I built the walls." The lobby roared. Hale didn't move, and for the first time all morning, the air inside TBI Bank felt clean. Richard Hale sagged into the chair like a man whose strings had been cut. The scattered papers around his shoes looked like the remnants of a crown no one believed in anymore. His badge blinked red, over and over, a silent metronome to his downfall. The young teller broke the hush first. She stepped out fully into the open, no longer afraid. "I'm done covering for you. Effective today, I resign, and I'll make sure HR knows why." Her words struck harder than any order I could give. Hale flinched, lips trembling, but nothing came out. The older banker followed, removing his ID lanyard and placing it neatly on the counter. "3 complaints ignored. 1 too many. She owns this place. You never did." Gasps spread, not of shock, but of recognition. The kind that said, "Finally." Clients joined in too, voices layering one after another. "You called her a fraud? Shame on you." "You don't represent this bank." "She does." "You'll never see another dollar from me." Each voice chipped away at the shell Hale tried to hide behind. He pressed his palms against his face, muttering, "This isn't how it ends. It can't." But the room answered for me. Phones hovered higher, recording his collapse from every angle. The guard who once shadowed me now stood near him, not as protection, but containment. I turned slightly toward the clients, my voice carrying steady across the marble. "What you're witnessing isn't just one man's arrogance. It's what happens when silence is mistaken for weakness. But silence is not weakness. It's patience, and patience has limits." The applause that followed wasn't chaotic anymore. It was unified, like a gavel coming down. Hale lifted his head, eyes wet, face pale. He reached toward me, not with power, but with pleading. "Please, don't take everything. I've given my life to this branch." I studied him for a long moment. The same man who'd stolen my card, spat the word fraud, called security on me without blinking. Now, begging. I leaned forward just enough for him to hear, but loud enough for everyone else to record. "You didn't give your life to this branch. You took from it, and today, it takes back. The guard placed a firm hand on Hale's shoulder. Not violent, just final. Hale didn't resist. His head dropped, shoulders folding inward. Around us, the clients stood taller. The staff held their ground. And for the first time all morning, the branch didn't belong to Richard Hale. It belonged to justice. The applause quieted, but the weight in the air remained. Richard Hale sat slumped in the chair, stripped of title, stripped of pretense. Around him, employees stood tall. Clients murmured their support, and the guard kept his hand firm on Hale's shoulder. I stepped forward, each footfall echoing across the marble. The room followed me with silence, as if waiting for the last gavel to drop. I set my leather case gently on the counter, the initials AW catching the chandelier's light. Slowly, I looked across the lobby from the mother balancing her child, to the teller still standing strong, to the man in the navy suit who had already vowed to close his account. Every one of them had witnessed more than an incident. They had witnessed a reckoning. When I spoke, my voice was calm, low, but deliberate enough that every phone captured it clearly. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits, sometimes it listens, and sometimes, when the time is right, it answers. The crowd stayed still, listening. Even Hale lifted his head, red-eyed, as if clinging to some shred of hope that my words might soften. They didn't. I continued, steady as stone. You called me a fraud in the very bank I own. You mistook silence for submission. That was your last mistake. Because power doesn't live in arrogance, it lives in truth. And today, everyone here saw the truth for themselves. A murmur swept through the room. Agreement, relief, even awe. I picked up my case again, tucking my phone inside. I don't need to film this moment, I said, my gaze sweeping once more across the crowd. Because I am the result of it. The applause that erupted shook the walls. Not polite claps this time, cheers, voices rising, phones catching every second. The teller wiped a tear from her cheek but kept smiling. The guard gave a small nod of respect. The clients clapped harder, some even chanting my name. I turned back once more to Hale, whose face sagged in defeat. This chapter is over, not because I said so, but because you wrote it yourself. Then I walked toward the glass doors, and as they opened, the sound of the crowd swelled behind me, not just applause, but the sound of justice finding its voice. Outside, the city stretched wide, alive and unaware of what had just transpired in that marble hall. But soon they would know. The videos were already spreading. The story had already left the building. And for anyone who doubted where dignity belongs, today gave them the answer.